Good afternoon, Plexus. My name is Amy Blue. I'm a Gold Ambassador with Plexus Worldwide, and I am putting this video together just to share some of my tips that I learned in the month of August as I was working to earn Leaders Retreat. I hope these will be helpful for people and that you can grab a piece of paper and a pen and take a few notes. None of these ideas are specific to Earning Leaders Retreat. It really is all just about growing and building your business. So I hope that you'll find the things that I learned to be helpful for you as well. The first point that that stuck out to me as I went through the month of August, or once the month was over, was the idea that people will buy your story before they will buy your product. And this will make even more sense probably as I go along, and I will share my actual story about the month of August in particular a little bit later, and all the points will build on this. But the way that you share Plexus does matter a lot. If your posts or messages look or sound like an advertisement, people will scroll by, they will completely tune out, they will not respond. People will respond to your story. So people will buy into your story before they will buy your product. Write that down. Our next point is going to be the idea of being authentic. And again, kind of a no-brainer. I know that it was something that I knew before August for sure. But there was a mistake that I made this month that I learned from, and learned this idea at a deeper level. So I was going to share that with you in hopes that you don't make the same mistake later, or that you can apply it to yourself in a way that matters for you. Earlier in the month, one of my sidelines had made the weekly leaders board for most preferred new customers in a week, and we were super excited for her. It was a great accomplishment, and we were asking her how she did that, how she achieved that, and she shared a message with us that she had been using and sending out to a bunch of people, and it was short, it was sweet. I don't think it actually even said Plexus in it at all, but it was a great message. We all agreed on that, and so I borrowed that message from her, and that evening I sent out a pretty decent handful of messages, copying what she had written. And then it was really interesting. Probably in the next day to day and a half, I had this major gut check about that message that I had sent out. And I did get a couple of responses back. I even had gotten one new customer out of it. So it obviously wasn't some big flop or failure. But I personally had a gut check about it. And I was like, man, this wasn't me. It was a great message, but it wasn't me. And that does matter. It matters in how people will receive it. And so I ended up eating a little bit of humble pie. I wrote a new message and backtracked a little bit, sent a new message out to those people, those same people. And interestingly enough, I had a much higher response rate after the second message, and people replying back to me and engaging. So you've got to be authentic. You've got to be true to yourself. And if there's sort of a 2B that I would like to add to that point, it is also the fact that there is no magic formula to writing a cold message. There's no magic set of words that's going to be the thing that gets people to respond to you. I think there's some great guiding principles. I think being authentic is one of those. Not sounding salesy or sounding like an ad is another. So there's some great guiding principles, but there is no magic message to get it done. I want you to remember point one and the idea of sharing your story. People are more likely to buy that story than they are to buy your product. So all of those things matter, and I will continue to share, I know on my personal page, as I have in the past, ideas of sample messages and stuff. I get and understand that people need those as a starting point, but ultimately you have to make it yours in order for your audience and your sphere of influence to respond to you. So those are my first couple points. My third one is going to be the idea that you need to actively engage in building your personal relationships, not just Plexus relationships. This is network marketing, so the way that your network perceives you at a personal level will matter in how they relate to you at a business level. Take the time to leave the engaging and encouraging messages for people on their social media posts. Take the moment to send a text to someone just to say hello, and don't make it about Plexus. Pick up the phone and do the same. Make the phone call and just find out how somebody's day is going. If you run into somebody at the store, at the gym, or at church, or wherever it is, take the minute, chat with them, find out what's going on in their life right now. Another little tidbit, short story to share with you is that one of the new customers I gained this month shared with me that there had been somebody else that had approached her about Plexus previously, and the reason that she purchased from me instead was because that person came across too aggressively toward her. It seemed more salesy, and I had taken a few months to build the relationship with this person, so that she knew that I cared, that we talked about all kinds of things that didn't have anything to do with Plexus, but when we talked about Plexus, it was all about how I felt like it could help her. It was about her. And I don't say that to toot my own horn in any way. It was something this month that really reemphasized to me that everybody in the world needs to know that they are cared for. And so let's be a team that makes that one of our very top priorities. Let's be a team of people that care about others really well. So that was a big one. The next point I'm going to make is know your why. And again, this is something that we share with all new ambassadors. It's one of the very first things that we ask people to do is to write down your why. Why did you join? Why do you want to be involved in health and wellness? Why do you want financial freedom? And this is where I'm going to share sort of the bulk of my story in what happened for me during August. Because what I'm talking about is not just the idea of knowing your why, it's the idea of knowing the depth of your why. Not just, hey, I'd really like to attain financial freedom, but paint a picture. What does that really look like for your family? What does that really mean? Why does it matter? And back in June, so here's my story. Back in June at convention, when they announced that Leaders Retreat was going to be in Orlando, there was something inside of me that was like, man, I have got to earn that trip for my kids. Which, obviously, like, who doesn't want to earn a trip to Orlando for their kids? Because it's Orlando and it's Disney and it's this and it's that. And so I didn't really think a lot about it. I just was like, yeah, I really need to earn that trip. And I got back home and started working really hard toward that end. But in all honesty, life was happening at that point in time, and I had some pretty tough personal stuff going on through June and July that occupied my time, but it also really occupied my mental capacities as well, and my ability to focus on my business the way that I wanted to. So I was not putting in the time that I'd hoped or would have liked to in order to push toward earning that trip. So by the time I got to the beginning of August, things personally were clearing up, so that was great. I had the time and a little bit better ability to focus, but I was behind par where I needed to be. I was starting the month with 460 points and needing to get to that magic number of 775. And to me, looking at that felt like a pretty significant uphill battle to get there. But I got to work. That whole feeling of like, I need to do this for my kids really resurfaced, and it drove me is about the only way that I could describe it. I really felt like I just had to do it. And so I started praying like crazy, continually asking God to go before me as I reached out to people. And it worked. I did. I was reaching out to people. I was doing a lot. But by the middle of the month, honestly, still kind of not where I needed to be. Didn't feel like things were falling into place or lining up how I would like them to. And it almost made me dig my heels in deeper. Like, it drove me further. I was like, there's no way. I'm not giving up on this. I have to do it. I didn't even know why it was driving. That's the whole thing. I didn't even know why I felt such a sense of drive, but I really did feel like I absolutely had to do this. And so I continued to pray and I continued to work. At the beginning of the month, at the beginning of August, Suzanne Clinton, our Diamond Upline, had put together a small group, a handful of us, who were all in that same boat, all trying to work and make the final push to Earn Leaders Retreat. And so that was a great source of encouragement. It helped keep me going, helped me know that other people were in my boat, as we were all trying to achieve the same goal. But you guys, it got to August 25th, so nearing the end of the month, and at that point, I think I still needed about 6 new customers / ambassadors, and I needed to hit 1,750 PV for the month, which, just for a reference point, prior to that, my highest PV ever had been right at 1,500, and that had been a while back. In June and July, I had landed right at 1,000. So to get up to 1,750 was a pretty significant jump from that. And like I said, kind of higher than I had ever been before. So it felt like a lot. Suzanne messaged me that morning on the 25th, and she was asking about a couple things, and then inquiring about where my points were, what I still needed. And as I was replying back to her was when that depth of my why finally dawned on me, what it was. And for me, it had everything to do with the fact that our previous trip to Orlando, 6 years prior to that with my kids, it was a hard season of life, and there was a lot of painful things going on. We needed this trip for redemption, for just rewriting some memories. That was my driving force. That was why I felt so passionately that I needed to get it. And it was like once that dawned on me, it fueled me. There was no way that August was going to end and I was not going to have earned that trip. So I shared that revelation with 2 of my friends who had been super supportive and had been praying for me all month. And one of them is, oh man, I love this girl. She challenges me all the time, but she pushed back and she said, Amy, share that story. And I chuckled back. I was like, you mean publicly share that story? And she said, you know what? People are going to connect. People are going to connect with that story. You have to share it. And I can't even tell you the fear that rose up in me, but she pressed and pushed and said, you need to do it. So I told her I would write it down. I would put my thoughts down on paper, and then I would send it to her so she could sort of review it for me and make sure that I didn't need to change or tweak anything. And by that afternoon, I was pushing post on Facebook and trembling, honestly. Like, it absolutely scared me to death. I was physically shaking. My legs felt like they couldn't support my body. I had stepped so far outside of my comfort zone because I had never been quite that vulnerable in sharing my story before, not in a public way. And so it was kind of terrifying. But you know what? It ended up being one of the most empowering things that I've ever done, because the response that I got back afterward was unreal. Even now when I think about it, it kind of blows me away. It was truly humbling, the response that came after that. And I'm not saying, oh, hey, I had all these new customers. I had everything I needed by, the time the day was over. It wasn't that. I still had to work. I still had to follow up with all those people. But I did get a great response. And by 5 days later, I had earned the trip. So it was obviously well worth it. Discover your deeper why and let it drive you. So I said that the point was know your why. It is know it, but it's also know the depth of it and let that be a driving force for you. I have 2 final points, and then I promise I'm going to wrap this up quickly. My last 2 points come out of that story that I just shared, and they're quick. One of them, the first of them, is you have to commit not to quit working. We will all have ups and downs, just like I shared. My June and July were a little more down than what I really wanted or needed them to be at that point in time. But if you want to build a business, you need to consistently work on income producing activities. Wishing that people would ask you about Plexus will not grow your business. You have to get to work. You have to reach out. You have to do the hard things. So commit to it and commit that you are not going to quit working. Even if your workload is lower and higher at different times, you have to commit that you will not quit working. Be consistent. And then my last point is that if you want to get to goals that you have never achieved before, you are going to have to do things that you have never done before. For me, this time, that was sharing really vulnerably about why that trip meant so much to me. I let people get a deeper glimpse into my story. Now, I'm going to be really careful here because I think that social media can be a really challenging thing. I am certainly not trying to say that you need to go spill your guts on social media. In fact, I'd probably advise against that. But if I were that vulnerable all the time, it would easily start being perceived as drama. And there's nobody that wants to be a part of that. They don't. We've all had those friends on Facebook or Instagram or wherever, and or we've already unfriended them or blocked them because nobody wants to be a part of your drama. So you do have to be very wise and very careful in how you do that. What I believe worked for me this time was that I invited people to join me in my story and in the redemption of my story to something more positive. Because that's something that people want to get on board with. People naturally like to help. So that was a good thing. But be wise in what you do. You know, that might not be your scary thing. I don't know what your scary thing is. But I bet that you probably do. Because as soon as I said that point, that in order to get to goals that you've never met before, you're going to have to do things that you've never done before. It probably popped in your head as soon as I said that. And whatever that is for you, get to work. Do it this month. Like, challenge yourself. Like I said, that ended up being one of the most empowering things that I've ever done in my business before. And the support I received was great. If you need help getting past that fear, please go to your upline. Please come to me. We are here to be your backbone and to have your back as you push out of those comfort zones. So do it. Like, just do it. Get out of the comfort zone and reach new goals. I am excited about what is in front of us and what's in our future. Let's make this the best month that we have ever had. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope that you've learned a few things. If you need my help with anything, you know where to find me. Thank you.